Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Zora, and this is the story of how my wedding day, the day that was supposed to be the beautiful beginning of my forever, turned into a trial by fire. I stared in disbelief as flames greedily engulfed my wedding gown. The ivory satin, the delicate hand-stitched lace overlay that had taken a wonderful seamstress in Little Italy 6 months to perfect. The dress I had saved for, dreamed of, and cried happy tears over when I first tried it on, was now a blackening, melting ruin on the antique hardwood floor of the bridal suite. It is strange what the mind clings to inside shattering shock. It was not the flames themselves, but the details. The acrid chemical smell of burning polyester and silk caught in the back of my throat. The sound was a soft, hungry crackle, so wrong against the joyful string quartet music drifting up from the ceremony space below. They were playing Clair de Lune, my favorite. Piece set against ruin. We were 30 minutes out. 30 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle and marry Caleb. I could already picture the first kiss, the champagne toast, the clumsy but joyful first dance. Every detail was perfect. My maid of honor, my best friend since college, Janelle, stood frozen beside me, her hand covering her mouth in a perfect O of horror. Her lavender dress was a stark, beautiful contrast to the smoldering wreckage at my feet. The other bridesmaids, Keisha and Nadine, were statues, their faces carved with disbelief. And then there was my sister. My younger sister, Tiana, stood before us with a disposable plastic lighter, still clutched in her manicured hand, its tiny flame sputtering out. But I did not look at the lighter. I looked at her face. It was twisted into triumphant rage, an expression I had never seen on her in all our years of shared secrets and childhood forts. Her eyes, usually full of mischievous life, burned with a terrifying fire of their own. "He was supposed to be mine," she shrieked, her voice high and brittle, shattering the stunned silence of the room. She took a step back, admiring her handiwork as if she had painted a masterpiece instead of destroying one. "He was never really yours, Zora. My name is Zora Mitchell." Well, in 28 minutes it was supposed to be Zora Davenport. At 32, I had built a good, solid life. I had a career in advertising I was proud of, a small but lovely apartment overlooking the Cuyahoga River, and I had finally found Caleb Davenport. He was steady and dependable, the kind of man you build a future with, the kind of man who called your father to ask for his blessing. Or so I thought. I never expected to watch my own sister burn my future to the ground. Janelle was the first to move. "Tiana, my God, what have you done?" she gasped, as if she could bat out the last embers with her hands. Tiana laughed, sharp and ugly as breaking glass. "I did what needed to be done," she spat, locking her venomous gaze on me. "You stole him from me. You knew I had a crush on him at the beginning, and you had to have him. You always have to win, do you not? The perfect one. The successful one." I could not speak. My mind reeled. A crush she had mentioned once, years ago, when I first started dating him. She said he was cute. She had been nothing but supportive since. Helped me plan, gushed over the ring, threw me a beautiful bridal shower with a tearful speech. It was all a lie. Every smile, every hug, every late-night call. A lie. Smoke thickened. A gray haze that made the festive floral arrangements look like funeral wreaths. Nadine wrenched open a window. Cool September air cut through the heat. Outside, the hum of Cleveland traffic and distant laughter felt like they came from another world. Tiana tossed her perfectly styled hair. "The wedding is off, obviously," she said, waving her hand. "I will tell everyone you got cold feet. He will be upset for a while, but he will get over it. He will come back to me. He always does." That simple phrase hit me like a blow. It was not a hopeful fantasy. It sounded like a fact. Cold dread crept up my spine. This was not sudden jealousy. This was planned. And that is when my training kicked in. 6 years at a top agency had taught me. In a crisis, you do not panic. You assess, strategize, and find a new angle. My hand steadied. I stepped away from the smoldering dress, reached into the pocket of the silk robe on the door, and pulled out my phone. My voice, when it came, was the voice I used when a client's campaign was failing, calm, factual. "You have no idea what you just did, Tiana." She laughed. "I saved him. What are you going to do? Call the police? It is my word against yours." A little sisterly fight that got out of hand. Who will they believe? I did not answer. I unlocked my phone and pressed a button. Comments popped up on the wedding live stream. "Is that smoke? What is happening in the bridal suite? I turned the screen toward her. Downstairs, for Caleb's grandparents in Florida and for Aunt Denise, who was on a cruise to Alaska, we had set up a live stream. Above the entrance, a massive projection screen that was supposed to show our slideshow now displayed a crystal-clear view of this room. Tiana, with a lighter in her hand. The blood drained from her face. "What is that?" she whispered. "The wedding live stream," I said. "It has been running for 20 minutes. Tiana lunged for the phone, composure shattering. "You planned this. You set me up." Janelle stepped between us. "She did not set you up. Everyone just watched you commit arson on live video." My phone buzzed. Keisha glanced at it and gasped. "It is Caleb. He has seen it. He is coming up." Tiana's eyes widened with panic. The live feed's angle shifted. The camera operator downstairs realized something was happening. The lens panned across the front row. I saw Caleb's father, Barrett Davenport, sitting stone-faced, his jaw tight. His wife, Lorraine, had a hand over her chest, disbelief etched on her face. Caleb's best man, Derek, started up the aisle at a run. Then Caleb himself flashed by, sprinting, his face twisted with what I first read as shock and fury. Now, with the seed of doubt Tiana had planted, I replayed it. There was fear in that face. The fear of being found out. The door burst open. Caleb stood there, breathless, chest heaving under his perfectly tailored tuxedo. His eyes swept the room. My face, Derek in the doorway, the ruined dress, and then Tiana. His gaze stayed on her a fraction too long. It was not the look of a man seeing a stranger who had just attacked his bride. It was something else. Familiarity. "What in God's name happened?" he demanded, voice dangerously quiet. He reached for me, concern rehearsed. "Zora, are you okay?" He was performing for an audience, my bridesmaids, his best man, the people still watching on the live stream. "Mother and father are on the way," Derek said, pale. Caleb's focus snapped back to Tiana. "Tiana, tell me you did not do this." His tone made the hair on my arms rise. He was pleading, asking her for a lie he could work with. It was the wrong question. It should have been fury on my behalf. Tiana saw her opening. She burst into sobs. "Caleb, I am sorry," she wailed. "I saw her about to put on that dress, and I could not stand it. I love you. I could not bear to watch her marry you." I watched him hesitate. He looked between her tear-streaked face and my own. He did not rush to me. He did not shield me. He did not unleash righteous anger. He froze. And in that moment, he told me everything I needed to know. The betrayal was not just hers. It was his. "Caleb," I said, cutting through her sobs. "Look at me." He forced his eyes to mine, panic and a desperate, silent plea swimming there. "For what? Collusion, smoothing it over, rescue? Whose side are you on?" I asked. He opened his mouth, closed it, and stared as his carefully constructed world crumbled. The air grew heavy with unspoken truths. Then the performance began. "She is obsessed with me," he blurted, pointing at Tiana. "She has been sending me messages for months, showing up. I kept telling her to stop, that I loved you. It was a plausible lie, neat and protective. A month ago, I might have thanked him for keeping it from me. Now it sounded like a bad script." Tiana snapped back. "He is lying. He led me on. He told me he loved me and that he was marrying you because of pressure to settle down. He said you were the sensible choice, the right choice on paper, but I was the one who made him feel alive." They volleyed accusations, a desperate tennis match. I stood by the open window, breeze washing my face, a spectator at the funeral of my relationship. Janelle stood beside me, arm firm around my shoulders. "Do not listen," she whispered. "They are rats escaping a sinking ship." Still, some hopeful part of me strained for a single crack of truth. Then I saw it, a delicate silver bracelet with a tiny sapphire charm on Tiana's wrist. 3 months earlier, on a weekend trip to Chicago for our anniversary, I had pointed to that bracelet in a small jewelry store window on Michigan Avenue and said, "Tiana would love that for her birthday." He had nodded, distracted, and later said he bought her a gift card. He had not. The bracelet winked from her wrist, a tiny, glittering lie. The room filled. Caleb's parents, Barrett and Lorraine, arrived in a rush. My parents, Harold and Vivian, came behind them, my mother pale, my father's face dark with gathering anger. He had worked for years to give me this perfect day. All of it was turning to ash. "What is going on?" my father boomed. Caleb and Tiana started talking at once, their stories tangling into a web. I watched my parents. I saw Vivian's wrenching pain as she looked at Tiana, and Harold's confusion harden into fury as he stared at Caleb. I let them spin for one more minute. I needed everyone to see them as they were before I brought out the truth. When a lull came, I stepped forward. "Caleb," I said, voice calm as a ledger. "Give me your phone." He froze. "What? Zora, why?" "Your phone," I repeated, hand out. "If Tiana is an obsessed stalker, there will be blocked calls and messages telling her to leave you alone. Show us." Panic flared in his eyes as he scanned the room for rescue. None came. Barrett watched him with narrow disappointment. Harold looked ready to rip the phone from his pocket. Even Lorraine's doting gaze had turned questioning. "This is ridiculous," he tried. "We do not need to do this now. This is a family matter. We should handle it privately." "We are long past privately," I said, nodding toward the phone still connected to the live stream. "The truth." With a defeated sigh, shoulders slumping, he handed it over. His hands were cold. I unlocked it with his passcode, our anniversary. The irony nearly choked me. Messages bloomed on the screen, and my heart splintered again. It was not one-sided. It was not a recent mistake. It was a full-blown affair. For over a year. Hundreds of messages. Flirtations sent while he sat next to me on the couch. Secret meetups planned while he was supposedly at the gym. Explicit photos. I scrolled, thumb mechanical, mind struggling to hold the scope of it. "Tiana, I miss you. I cannot wait for your business trip to Dayton." "Caleb," counting the minutes. "This wedding planning charade is killing me. Listening to her talk about flowers when all I want is you. It is torture." "Tiana, you promised you would tell her." "Caleb, I will, baby. After I marry her, things will be easier. We will have access to her inheritance from her grandmother. We can start our own business. It is a means to an end. A sound financial decision. Inheritance. He was planning to use the modest amount my grandmother left me as seed capital. Not just cheating. Defrauding. Using my love and family's legacy as his bank. Nausea washed through me. Janelle steadied my arm. I kept scrolling until I found the one from the night before our wedding. "Caleb, do not worry. Tomorrow I marry my future, but you will always be my soulmate." I looked up. Silence. Faces turned toward me, waiting for a verdict. Caleb's face ashen, sweat beading. Tiana chewing her lip, hope flickering. I read his words out loud, clear and strong. The business trips, the secret meetings, the cold plan for my inheritance, and the final damning message. A collective gasp. My mother sobbed. Barrett closed his eyes, his face a mask of shame. When I finished, I locked the phone and held it up. "Any more lies?" I asked. He had nothing. The only sound was my mother's broken sobs. Caleb and Tiana stood like statues, their shared guilt hanging in the air like the smoke from my dress. I searched Caleb's face for remorse and found none. Only the hollow expression of a man whose scheme had collapsed. He was not sorry for what he had done, only that I knew. Something shifted inside me. The pain remained, but alongside it rose a cold, clear anger. They had humiliated me in front of the people I loved. They had burned my dream on a stage. They had given me a platform. I would use it. I turned to my bridesmaids. "Janelle, Keisha, Nadine, thank you for everything. I need you downstairs with my parents." "We are not leaving you alone," Janelle said, eyes flashing. "Yes, you are," I said, a voice I barely recognized. "This next part one have to do alone." They filed out, each squeezing my arm. I walked to the door. Caleb jolted, grabbed my arm. "Zora, wait. Do not do anything crazy. We can talk." I looked down at his hand, then up at his eyes. I lifted his hand from my arm as if removing lint. "You had a year to talk," I said. "Your time is up." I left the bridal suite and the wreckage of my past. Behind me, my father's voice erupted, low and furious, then a burst of chaos I did not care to hear. I walked barefoot down the grand staircase, the marble cold under my feet. I wore the simple white silk slip under my dress. Venue staff stared, but no one stopped me. The ceremony space buzzed with restless whispers. The live stream camera waited at the altar. Perfect. I pushed open the oak doors and walked in. The quartet faltered and went silent. I walked down the aisle lined with rose petals and the faces of my loved ones. I did not stop until I stood beneath the floral arch that felt like a joke now. I took the microphone. The metal was cool in my hand. 150 pairs of eyes. Thousands more online. My hand shook just slightly, but my voice was steady. "Good afternoon," I said, amplified and clear. "Thank you for coming to celebrate what was supposed to be my wedding day." I looked out at friends from college, colleagues, cousins, my parents and Caleb's parents in the front row. Some faces were confused, some deeply concerned, some already pitying. I did not want pity. I wanted attention. You are wondering what happened, I said. You saw a small piece of it just now. You saw my sister, Tiana, set fire to my wedding dress. A ripple of shocked murmurs. I let them settle. What you did not see, I said, voice lower, drawing them in, was why. For the past year, my sister, my maid of honor, has been having an affair with my fiancé, Caleb. This time, a collective gasp swept the room. Barrett removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Lorraine looked ill. My parents held on to each other. They tried to tell me she is obsessed and he is innocent, I said. They lied right up until a few minutes ago in the bridal suite. I held up Caleb's phone. Everyone knew what it was. I walked to the audiovisual technician at his station. He stared, stunned. Can you connect this to the projector? I asked. The same way the live stream is connected? He nodded, fumbling. 30 seconds later, the screen behind me flickered to life with the message thread between Caleb and Tiana. I stepped aside and let their words speak. The room went utterly silent as faces tilted up to read. Lies, secret trips, sickening pet names, and the cold plan to marry me for access to my inheritance. Finally, the last message about soulmates. When they had read enough, I gave the technician a small nod. The screen went blank. So, I said, voice ringing with a strength I had not known I possessed, the wedding is off. I let those words sink. I refused to enter a vow with a man who betrayed me, and I refused to pretend the woman who did this, who plotted to use me, is my family. I looked into the main camera. To anyone who has been lied to or made to feel small by the people who were supposed to protect you, you deserve better. I turned back to the guests. There is an open bar and a lot of food already paid for. Please enjoy it on me. Celebrate. Celebrate the truth. An older woman, a distant cousin, stood and started clapping, slow, deliberate, full of conviction. Then another stood. Within seconds, the entire room rose in a thunderous ovation. They were not clapping for a jilted bride. They were clapping for a survivor. The warmth of their support washed over me. I had lost a wedding, but I had saved myself. The buzz of phones began at once, texts and posts flying. My father barreled toward the stairs, fury in his stride, but Barrett intercepted him, a hand on his arm, murmuring something placating. Guests moved. Some came to me with hugs and words of support. Others, mostly friends of the Davenport's country club set, slipped out side exits, faces tight with embarrassment. The venue manager, Malcolm, approached pale. Miss Mitchell, Zora, what are your instructions? I felt strangely clear. The party goes on, I said. Tell the band to scrap the slow songs and play something upbeat. Tell the bartenders to pour freely. This is not a wedding reception. It is a celebration of freedom. Relief flooded his face. Yes, a freedom party. I can do that. My boss, Reginald, materialized at my side with 2 flutes of champagne. He handed me one. That, he said, eyes gleaming with professional admiration, was the most spectacular act of personal brand management I have ever witnessed. A master class in crisis communication. I laughed once, surprised and shaky. Only you would see it that way. I am serious, he said. You did not just expose them. You took control of the narrative. Corporations pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for that kind of recovery, and you did it in a slip dress with a microphone. When you are ready, we should discuss a promotion. Across the room, I saw my mother holding a sobbing Tiana by the arm, her face cold with fury. She said something low I could not hear and delivered a slap so crisp it cut through the noise. It was not my victory, but it felt like a small measure of justice. Caleb was nowhere. I learned later he had slipped out a back exit the moment I started down the stairs. The next day, the adrenaline was gone, replaced by bone-deep exhaustion. My apartment, a joyful hive of fittings and favor assembly for months, felt cavernously quiet. My phone buzzed incessantly on the coffee table. 112 new text messages. 47 missed calls. Messages from friends offering support, missed calls from relatives hungry for gossip, and a string of desperate voicemails from Caleb. I pressed on his contact and hit block. I did the same for Tiana. Janelle had stayed the night, a loyal soldier. From the kitchen, over the hiss of coffee, she fielded a call. No, Mrs. Davenport, she is not available to speak right now, she said firmly. No, I will not give her a message. She hung up and slid a steaming mug into my hands. Thank you, I said, voice raw. Any time, she replied. What is the plan, General? She was right. This was not just a breakup. It had legal and financial strings. The first call I made was to my parents. My father answered on the first ring. My mother was too upset to speak, alternating between white-hot rage at Tiana and a crushing heartbreak for me. Harold, practical as ever, said, "You need to make a police report today." What Tiana did was a crime. It was arson and destruction of property. There have to be consequences. A part of me wanted to let it go, to cut them out and walk away. But he was right. This was not a family squabble. So that afternoon, Janelle drove me to the police station. In a sterile, fluorescent-lit room, I told an officer the whole story. The dress, the lighter, the live stream. He was professional, but the shock was clear. When he asked if I wanted to press charges, I looked at Janelle. She nodded. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I do." Another small act of reclaiming power. Next came the financial untangling. Venue, caterer, band, florist. I had put down significant deposits. Much of it from a special fund my father had saved for me that had grown over the years. For days, I was on the phone with a headset and a spreadsheet, explaining the situation. To my surprise, most vendors were compassionate. The story had become the biggest news in Cleveland. The local paper ran a headline about a bridal live stream exposing a cheating fiancé and an arsonist sister. The venue waived the cancellation fee. The caterer, owned by Miss Benice, offered a partial refund. "Honey, you deserve it," she said. The hardest part was the gifts. They had been arriving for weeks. I could not keep them. They felt tainted. Janelle and I formed an assembly line. She unboxed. I wrote thank you cards that doubled as cancellation notices. "Thank you for the beautiful dinnerware. Unfortunately, the wedding has been canceled. I will return your generous gift, and I am grateful for your friendship and support." Each card was a small, painful reminder of the home I would not build with him. Weeks after what the local media dubbed the wedding that was not, the dust began to settle for me, but the story took on a life of its own. It was picked up by national blogs and women's magazines. Daytime talk shows reached out. I braced myself for humiliation. Instead, my inbox and social media filled with messages from women all over the country. Women who had been cheated on, women with toxic siblings, women manipulated and lied to. They shared raw stories they had never told anyone else. They thanked me. One woman from Oregon wrote a long email. She had been in an emotionally abusive marriage for a decade, afraid to leave because of the money and what people would say. After hearing my story, she called a divorce lawyer for the first time. My private disaster had become a symbol of resilience I did not ask for, but could not ignore. At work, Reginald was true to his word. He called me into his corner office with a view of the lake and slid a thick folder across the desk. "We have had 3 new client inquiries this week, major brands," he said. "They specifically asked for you. They want the woman who knows how to handle a crisis with courage and grace. I have wanted to open a new department focused on personal branding and crisis management for individuals, chief executive officers, politicians, public figures. I want you to run it. This is a vice president level promotion with salary and bonus to match." A month earlier, I had worried about paying rent and facing colleagues. Now I was being offered the biggest opportunity of my career, born from my deepest pain. I accepted without hesitation. The new role became my therapy. I poured my energy and sharper edges into it. I was good at it because I understood what it felt like to have a story stolen and twisted. I helped people find their voices and control their narratives. We launched the department with a simple slogan drawn directly from that day. Some stories deserve to be told loudly. It resonated. Meanwhile, the consequences rolled in for Caleb and Tiana. Tiana pleaded guilty to misdemeanor destruction of property and reckless endangerment to avoid a felony arson charge. Her lawyer argued for leniency, but the judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who had seen the video, gave her 2 years of probation, a hefty fine to repay the cost of the dress, and a year of court-mandated therapy. My mother said Tiana barely left the house, consumed by shame. Caleb's implosion was just as spectacular. The conservative financial firm where he worked as a wealth manager fired him. The termination letter, I was told, cited moral turpitude and liability with high-net-worth clients. A mutual acquaintance said he and Tiana tried to make a go of it, but a relationship built on lies crumbled in 2 months. They had destroyed my life to be together, and in the end they could not stand each other. There was a dark justice in that. A year passed. A year of 80-hour weeks, of healing, of rediscovering who I was without the labels of fiancé or sister. The woman who stood in her apartment a year later was not the one who had stood in that bridal suite. I was stronger, more confident, more myself. Different but whole. My department thrived beyond expectations. I hired Janelle away from her old job to be my second in command. We became a formidable team. With the promotion, I bought a condo in a beautiful old building in Ohio City, a place that was entirely mine. I filled it with my own things and my own peace. I reconnected with my mother, who was slowly learning to set boundaries with Tiana. Our relationship was different and more honest. I had not spoken a single word to Tiana or Caleb since that day. They were ghosts. One crisp autumn afternoon, I came home from work to find a single hand-addressed envelope in my mailbox. The return address was blank, but I recognized the looping, overly perfect handwriting immediately. It was from Tiana. My first instinct was to throw it away, to rip it into pieces and let the wind carry it. Curiosity, or a need for closure, won. I sat in my quiet living room with late afternoon sun streaming through the windows and opened it. The letter was not what I expected. No excuses. No justifications. No shifting blame. It was an apology, raw, rambling, deeply sad. She wrote about therapy, about confronting the corrosive jealousy that had shadowed her life. She wrote about the emptiness of her supposed victory, how getting what she thought she wanted revealed how little it was worth. Destroying my happiness had not brought her any of her own. It left her alone, alienated from the family she fractured. She wrote she was sorry over and over. She knew it meant nothing and that she did not deserve forgiveness, but she had to say it. A year earlier, this letter would have sent me into rage. 6 months earlier, it might have made me cry. Now I felt quiet finality, a strange peace. Her apology was not for me. It was for her. It was the last act of a person trying to forgive herself. I folded the letter and put it back in its envelope. I walked to a wooden box on my bookshelf where I kept old memories, photos from childhood, concert tickets, letters from old friends. I placed Tiana's letter inside and closed the lid. It was a part of my story, a dark and painful part, but not the defining chapter. It was just a page I was ready to turn. I did not need her apology to move on. I had already done that when I picked up a microphone under a floral arch and told the truth. I had taken the worst day of my life, the absolute bottom, and turned it into the foundation for a better, stronger, more authentic one. Some fires are meant to destroy. Others clear the way for new things to grow. Mine did both. And I grew. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.